Hello, everybody. Welcome to Amazing You. I am your host, Dr. Rani Tanakodi. I am a certified hypnotherapist using rapid transformational therapy method. I am a Mars Venus life and relationship coach, breathwork coach, tarot reader, astrologer, and life force compassion practitioner. And today I have the great pleasure to introduce you all to the beautiful Jayshree Dexter. She is from South Africa. Jayshree is an NLP practitioner, life coach, hypnotherapist, and executive and business coach. Welcome to Amazing You, Jayshree.
Thank you, Dr. Rani. It's I think the third time's the charm. We've been trying to do this for a while now, and I'm very blessed that we are finally getting a chance to do it.
That's correct, and it's such a pleasure to have you to speak to the audience today. Thank you for taking your time. I know you are very busy and really appreciate your time today. So let's get started with that first question, which is tell us, Jayshree, briefly about your story.
Oh, my story, it's got so many chapters and segue, and, pretty much from a small town girl with big dreams and been through a lot of experiences. And if I could say one thing that defines me is I've lived my life in corporate, and I've realized that I want to touch people's lives. And I've had so many experiences and have had to learn from those experiences. And I've met so many people in my life who have motivated me and mentored me and whom I've learned from. And I want to sort of pay back, if I could say that.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just a healer, and I want to share and learn. And yeah, that's me.
Thank you. And tell us, Jayshree, what has inspired you to move from your law degree, from law, to start your own business? So tell us about that.
So firstly, psychology was my first choice to study, and it didn't really work out. The law is and will always be a part of me. That's in NLP, you know about states. So there's I've got my lawyer state, but the human mind is so fascinating. And I've always, from a young age, was just fascinated by its power. At, sitting here, you can travel the world and space and just in your mind. I mean, just amazing. So the biggest decision, the incident, I want to say incident, what I went through that sparked the move, because I've always wanted to move out and into the psychology space, and life coaching and hypnotherapy, is becoming a mom. Now, I find that women generally are not open when it comes to, or truthful when it comes to the real struggles that we face. So long story short, corporate, typical, A-type personality. So I read all the books and went to all the classes, and then I'm like, ready for this, right? And then here comes this human being, and I have no control over it. So two things happened. The first thing was, because I had no control and felt like I was failing, and failure is a big issue for me, I then veered to something that I could control, which was work.
Yes.
I excelled at work. So I started to push, which resulted in massive burnout, as you would imagine.
Yes.
So that resulted in psychiatrists and several different antidepressant medication. And what I thought was actually postpartum turned out to be burnout, pure and simple. Now, what caused that is I had to do a lot of introspection. And I realized that up until that point of becoming a mom, I thought I had dealt with all of my childhood traumas.
Wow.
And, we can deal with it and we never realize, or we don't realize what can trigger it. And
Yes.
the birth of my son triggered
Okay.
my childhood trauma where I became my mom and my husband became my dad. And I was crazy. And through a lot of therapy and a lot of introspection and prayer and all of that, I healed. And that is what made me realize, you know what? My life's purpose now is helping other women who are going through that and who are struggling. So that was the main event that pushed me into it, that made me realize, you know what? And corporate is amazing. I excelled, and in that, when I was, at that point in my life, it served me. It served
Yes.
my needs. I wanted the validation, I wanted the accolades. I wanted to be burning the midnight oil. And I did that. And I got the, admiration and adoration for it. But now I no longer need it because I reinvented myself.
Yes.
And so that's what I want to share with everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Jayshree, can you tell us what has been for you the greatest challenge in your life, other than the birth of your child?
Yes, that one is still a challenge. The dichotomy, I love being with him, but then I also don't love being with him.
Wow.
I need my distance. The distance. Anyway, the other greatest challenge for me was when I was 20 years old. I was involved in a car accident.
Okay.
And it was actually very, very hectic. I almost died. And that experience, so prior to that, I had always had this question about God and life and why, does certain things happen to people? Why must there be so much of struggle and strife and pain and crime? How does God let that happen? And I got the answer through that experience because in that moment, so I grew up as a Hindu, and I think at heart I'll always be a Hindu. And there is this psalm in the Bible, I think it's Psalm 23. It's the one where, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
Yes.
So I had this experience, and if I tell you, it like time stood still. At that time, I knew I was dying.
Okay.
I remember being in the hospital. I was in a coma and both lungs were failing. And so what I'm telling you is what I actually remember and experienced. The rest is what, other people say. But I remember lying and knowing I was in the hospital and I could hear the doctors speaking. And in South Africa, they were speaking Afrikaans, and I can understand Afrikaans. So I heard them saying it's so translated in Afrikaans. They were discussing how were they going to tell her mom. So I responded and I said, "Tell her what? What is wrong?" And then they spoke in Afrikaans again, saying, "Stop talking, she can understand you." But for me, it was, if at that moment I had to die, I was going to be okay with it.
Right. And
I
sorry I'm interrupting you. It's such an interesting thing that you are sharing. And when you had that moment when you could hear the doctor speaking, were you in your body or were you outside of your body? Your soul was watching all that.
it must have been outside,
Okay.
because I just remember this the sense of feeling and being. I wasn't in my body, no.
Okay.
And I can remember this faint sound of the a nurse yelling and screaming at me to breathe, breathe. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, I'm not interested in that, I'm happy. And so the two things I learned from that, and I know it's a big thing, it's this understanding of death and how it's not something to be feared, and God really is with you. Because prior to that, my mom was always so afraid that we would meet into a car accident. So she would pray, and we'd have to listen to prayer music in the car. So when it happened, the accident happened, I'm certain I was speaking to God, and I said, oh, well, it happened. It finally happened. And I realized how we manifest things through our fears.
Yes.
And I was actually waiting for it to happen. And it happened. So, and there's one more experience I want to share with you. And that stuck with me. And that is a relationship between a mom and a child. Because so it was my sister and I were actually in the accident together. So my poor mom had the one, and I was injured more than the other. So she had two of her daughters, and she needed to go to my sister, and I wanted her with me. So she asked one of my aunties. So I'm out of this. So imagine I'm like slipping in and out of a coma. So I don't really know what's going on. But she asked one of my aunties to hold my hand and pretend that it's her, that's my mom. And my mom was saying that I was holding my auntie's hand, and I held it for like 30 seconds and I pushed it away.
Right.
Because I realized it wasn't. I thought, even while dying, you can know your mom. I mean, how amazing is that?
Yes.
Those were just two things that just stuck with me throughout life. It's just, yeah, I could talk about it for hours, you can imagine.
It is very fascinating, and what you had is a near-death experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I changed my life. And, in that moment, I also realized, because that was a defining moment in my life, where my life was going in one direction, and it completely changed. And in less than a second, everything you think you know about life can change. And you have to relearn. And yeah, it's just...
What a life-changing experience.
I was bedridden for a bit and had to learn how to walk again, but I did it,
Yes, you are so strong and powerful. And your story remind me of, I don't know if you've heard of Anita Mojani. She wrote the book Dying to Be Me, where she had very much like you a near-death experience. Yeah. And she's very much like you. She said what she was hearing around, and she was really sick. So you reminded me of her story when you were saying that today. Yeah.
Thank you. People are so afraid. I remember trying to tell my mom, but I think at that time, maybe she interpreted it differently, because she gave a lot to say and, get me better. But I was trying to tell her that death is not something to be afraid of. And if I had died, it would have been okay, to not be afraid. Just these things, it's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jayshree. It is really very, very interesting to hear from you and your stories, and I can spend hours, but we've got because the audience time is limited and your time is limited. So let's carry on and move on and keep going. So the next question for you, Jayshree, is who has been the most influential person in your life and why?
Mm. This answer is a no-brainer. There's plenty.
Okay.
But the constant, the one is my mom.
Okay.
Specifically because
Mm-hmm.
she taught me, and it's something I hope to teach my son, and hopefully if I do have more children, is a love for God, our
Okay.
creator, and a curiosity. And that has stayed. And I've continued searching forever. And I think that's amazing. That's the one gift that's got me through everything.
Mm. And what are the three qualities you admired most in your mom, Jayshree?
So it was, we grew up in a small town, and it's very much culture and society. And she always went against that. She
Okay.
never, despite us living there, she spoke differently. She would read. So it was, she always challenged everything and the societal norms and cultural norms. She challenged it, and she passed. I learned that from her.
Mm.
Justice and fairness. She was very, very, very. Yeah, that for me is very powerful. Partly because of my experience growing up as well,
Mm.
and just how non-judgmental she was. Like you could go to her and tell her that you murdered someone, and she would just listen and hear your side of the story. People were just drawn to her for that.
Mm.
And she only finished standard 5.
Okay.
And she was so intelligent because she read, and she read anything and everything. And
Mm.
I would read anything and everything, and that's how I learned. So it was just the ability to teach herself. I could go on and on, but those are the ones that stand out for me.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And the next question, Jayshree, is what quote has helped you to cope in challenging times?
So there's a lot, and I wrote it down so that I
Okay.
don't forget it, because I
Yes.
love reading and literature. I love this. It's by Rumi,
Okay.
and it
I love
says,
Rumi too.
yes, the wound is the place where life enters you.
Yes.
That for me, that is because through those wounds, it's
Mm.
who I am today. I am not the wounds, but
Yeah,
the wounds have helped me develop who I am today. I'm grateful for them.
absolutely. And as hypnotherapists, you know that when we heal from our wounds, it's like the light enters because we let go of these dark shadows of these inner dark places of us. We let it go. And that's
Mm.
when the light, we start to feel alive, we start to feel happy, we start to feel joyful again. Yes. Yeah. That's very
Mm.
true. Yes. Thank you. And what would you say today, Jayshree? So many people are facing some really tough times. I keep hearing not stories, but it's life of people, what they are going through. So at this point of time, it can be mental issues, physical issues, emotional issues a lot, relationship issues people are going through. So what would you like to tell those people who are facing some tough times today, Jayshree?
What I would like to tell them is I am sitting here today, and there have been many occasions where I was suicidal and I could have taken my own life.
Right.
It's if I can do it, so can you. We're born the same, we've got the same abilities. Just tap into it. And
Mm.
number 2, hypnotherapy is the answer, because heal your inner child. You don't know when those triggers will happen. And if you don't reflect and get help, the help that you need, don't be afraid. Then I wouldn't have been here if I didn't get the help that I needed 2 or
Mm.
3 years ago. And recognize it, and it's not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of resilience and strength to admit that you need help, and it is out there. It's not expensive. It's not about. It's just go online, speak to someone, speak to the right people.
Yes.
You get help, but if you want to, you must want it.
Yes, I think that's the key point. That's really, really big point that you made, that you have to want to be helped. Yes. So you know that there is help out there. You don't need to sit in that situation of pain where you are. It's about your willingness to look for help. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Jayshree. Yes. So Jayshree, tell us about, I know you like reading. You said you studied a lot, and tell us about the book. It can be one or two books that have influenced you the most, and why. Tell us about that, Jayshree.
Ooh, so many, yes. Which one to choose? Okay, so I love Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain, because everything I have in my life, I have visualized and manifested. Everything. I also love Faust. By, I think it's Johann Wolfgang van Goethe. I'm not sure how you pronounce the surname. Version of it's Rumpelstiltskin, that deal with the devil to try and get, the life that you. But read it. It's amazing. It teaches one about life and how we want things, and we want to give up the wrong things for it. You can get anything you want in life, anything. You don't have to sell your soul to do it.
That's true.
And I do love I Am Enough by Marissa Peer.
Okay.
That one helped with loving myself. It does work. I been preaching it to everybody around me. I have it written down in my office and, on my vision board. So I'd say those are the top three at the moment that come to mind immediately.
Thank you. These are great, great books. Yes, definitely. I will read the one by First, like you said.
You must. There's an audiobook available.
Okay. And who is the author? Can you?
It's Johann Wolfgang van Goethe.
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
Okay. That would be great. Thank you. And finally, tell us briefly about what you do, because you do so many things. So tell us more in depth about that, and how can people reach out and contact you, Jayshree?
So I do a lot of things.
Okay.
So I'm just a healer, I could say that.
Yes.
I love, but it depends on what the individual likes. Not everybody's open to hypnotherapy. So there's many different techniques that we use. Neurolinguistic programming is amazing. And sometimes just mentoring or coaching. So I'm just here to help you heal. And I love working with young adults, new moms, because their experiences that I've had. And it's, I know we've spoken about reading, and, there's a lot of literature out there. But what I do is actually give people, I don't want to say advice, but tools that I myself have used. It's worked for me. So that's what I do. I have a website. It's www.jayshreedexter.com. So if you'd like more information, go there. I do the first session as a teaser session to see if you like it, because the key is it's what I'm looking for, sort of vibe, energy, where you have to, it needs to gel well. We need to be vibing, I guess, and the millennials use that term now. So we use the first session as a meet and greet and get to know each other. And if you're feeling it, then we move forward to the next step.
That's great. And do you do individual session or group session online? How do you do your session, Jayshree? Tell us about that.
Majority is not group, individual sessions.
Okay.
However, I am an accredited Time to Think facilitator. So I do go into corporates and do team buildings and executive coaching and leadership coaching and so forth. That's more on the corporate side of it. And then there's the individual side of it. I do slightly prefer the individual side because you get to see the development, you know, and you get to see it work.
That's so true. Yes. You see the evolution of that mentee, of that person, how they grow from that journey of when they started and until they reach their goal, what they wanted. Yes.
I suppose that's my own need that I'm trying to fulfill there, and so seeking validation somewhere. We all, it's a constant battle.
Yes, but you are helping people on that journey to become a better version of themselves. So it is like you are serving them in trying to get your own validation, because we heal ourselves as we help others. Yeah.
Correct. That's what I picked up. Yes, when I was facilitating, the more I spoke about my story, the more I healed.
Yes. That's why everybody needs to be vulnerable and open up and share your stories from a place of strength, not from a place of being a victim, but from a place of how you survive and became a victor like Jayshree. Yes. So thank you, Jayshree, for taking your time today, for speaking to the audience. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your amazing stories. And I would like to wish you a lot of success on that amazing journey that you've undertaken and you are still going through, and that you become very, very successful, Jayshree.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rani. I am so, it's out of this world to have met an eccentric personality like you. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show. I've really been wanting to do this for a while now. So
yes. Thank you so much. It's been an honor and a privilege to have you, Jayshree, from South Africa, to be here to speak to the audience who is listening and watching from all over the world. And I would like to say a big thank you to the audience. It's been 2 years that you've been watching, listening, subscribing. So please let people know, and we will be with you with some other exciting guest speakers for 2023. Thank you again, Jayshree. And thank you to the audience. Have a great, great week, everyone. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.